Alarm NBA DFS show with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We are here for the Thursday 5-game main slate here, James, and it is quite a doozy. Some pretty interesting matchups here on tap, some injury news that we are going to go over. Overall, this one could be a fun one for 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had any slates like this week where every team in action tonight is either in the playoffs, in the play-in tournament, or vying for a play-in tournament spot. So that should mean high-level basketball from start to finish. Obviously, that doesn't mean every game's going to be competitive, but 4 of the 5 games with single-digit spreads, 2 games over 228 implied points. It should be a fun overall slate with lots of star power and a little bit of everything mixed in there as well.
Yeah, 100%. We appreciate you all tuning in. Coach Chris in the chat early, telling everybody to hit that like button. Please hit that thumbs up button. It is a free way to support what we do here at the channel. And K-Dub in here saying, let's get that money tonight. Yeah, we're here for you guys. We're going to go over the slate, break it down position by position, get you any breaking news that occurs over the next hour or so. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. James and I are here to help you guys out when it comes to today's slate with your lineups, betting, you name it. We're going to cover it here for all of you. Taking a look at this slate, Philadelphia, Miami. Miami is giving 209.5 game total. We have Sacramento versus New York. Knicks giving 3.5 with a 213.5 total. Atlanta, Dallas, the game of the night, maybe. Dallas giving 12 at home, 227.5 total. Golden State, Houston getting 3.5, 228 total. If you're on DraftKings, you get the Denver LA game. The Clippers are getting 221 over on FanDuel. They left you out, guys. Sorry. No Denver Clippers on the FanDuel here.
There's some interesting things going on. Philly, Miami is obviously like the center of the news cycle today. Sure. Tobias Harris was just ruled out not too long before we hopped on air. Embiid and Maxey did go through shoot around. Jimmy Butler, I don't know if you saw that, was not with the team this morning at shoot around for a personal reason. I'm assuming he was starring in another music video or finishing up his latest country album hit. It's time for April. That would be my assumption is, or it's playoff time is probably going to be like the #1 song on Jimmy's country album that will debut probably this summer after they have a play-in tournament exit. But sure. That game is probably the game with the most relevant news. Obviously, if you are playing on DraftKings, we need to know if Jamal Murray is going to play. That's pretty big news. We need to know about some Knicks. Josh Hart is listed questionable. I don't know if you saw the comments from Steve Kerr this morning, but I found it really interesting. Obviously Golden State's won a bunch of games in a row, but here we are again with them looking at Jonathan Kuminga, who's probably their second best scorer, and by probably I mean he is their second best scorer at this point, being like, you can just come off the bench and play like 20 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if he returns. Clearly things trending towards him coming off the bench. But for a day that like started with a lot of news that we needed, we didn't really get much, but it'll be interesting over the next couple hours to see what comes out on the
for sure. DT saying we're new faves. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for checking in here today. Clem, we're going to get you off the schneid here tonight. We're going to get a good lineup built. And we're going to break it all down for you guys here. Let's just talk about it. Luka Doncic is $12,500. The last time he faced Atlanta, he scored 73 actual points against them with 10 rebounds and 7 assists. Of course, those of you who follow the NBA long enough know that, well, Luka could have been an Atlanta Hawk had they not traded and decided and opted for a package of picks, which landed them ultimately Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter, and was it Cam Reddish was the other part of that deal? So they lost. Dallas won, and Luka lets them know that they lost that deal and they should have drafted him here. He is the highest priced player on the slate. He has the highest ceiling on the slate outside of maybe, the other two guys that are high priced as well. We've seen them all go for 100 before, Embiid and Jokic as well. But where are you when it comes to Luka Doncic tonight? 12-5.
I wonder what Boosie thinks about this. I wonder if Boosie thinks like, man, we could have had Luka instead of Trey. Not that again, I've said this a bunch of times. I'm a Trey supporter. They have both been to the same point in the playoffs. Both have been to a conference finals. So, although Luka may get new hardware in his mantle before Trey does, both have been to Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals. I have no problem getting to Luka. I mean, this is one of the better games in terms of implied points on the slate. We can always pay the premium for Luka because there's always the chance he goes for 80. You and I were talking a little bit before we got on. I think like what separates Luka, obviously the peripheral stats and all that, but like when he's making threes at this rate, like there is just always the chance he has 50 actual in a game.
Right.
Like he's taking over nearly 11 threes per game and also making them at a career high, almost 38%, over 38% on the year, 39% since the All-Star break. So like, it's just the ceiling is that much elevated on DraftKings when he's making, I mean, he made 9 threes 2 games ago.
Yeah.
And played 35 minutes. He would have played 40 minutes in a competitive setting. Who knows what he would have had. So the upside is tremendous on Luka. I think 18% currently in large field GPPs is too low. That also has to do with ownership or values.
Yeah.
Not really being there. If you look at the updated ownership on FantasyAlarm.com, Cam Whitmore, Russell Westbrook, Daniel Gafford, and Tim Hardaway. Those are your 4 highest rostered plays of the day. Like, how comfortable with any of those are you really?
Right.
Them don't start, right? And Daniel Gafford still, without Derek Lively, can't play 30 minutes. So, like, or hasn't really played 30 minutes. So, like, that just goes to show you why people aren't spending up on Luka. Perfectly fine if you end up getting there.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time, right? If we can get a Luka Doncic at less than 20%, we consider that a win over the field here, given what he certainly can put out there for production. If we're not going Luka Doncic tonight, there is DeJounte Murray on the opposite side of that matchup. He's been very, very good without Trae Young. 47 fantasy points last time out in a double-double effort. He'll be on the opposite side. De'Aaron Fox, 93. Jalen Brunson, 91. Those two are battling off each other here as well. Thoughts on the other 9K guards here?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely get to DeJounte if you project this game to be competitive. Walking double-double without Trae. Walking just stat accruer without Trae Young and Kongwu and Sadiq Bey. I mean, all 3 of those guys make a difference for Atlanta, right? Like, those are 3 core rotation pieces that are not there. DeJounte, as a taller guard, is a very good rebounder, is a good passer, and he shoots a lot of threes as well. So I like DeJounte. I'm not so high on De'Aaron Fox, but you can definitely get there in tournaments. The Kings need to continue to win games to stay out of the play-in tournament. Because I think of all the teams you want to see in the play-in tournament, if you're like matching up, it's probably the Kings, especially if there's going to be no Malik Monk and Kevin Porter, just to like so much less spacing they have without those guys. So Fox is in for big minutes. Really, just not a great spot overall. Just given what the pace is in this game. But on the flip side, I do like Jalen Brunson quite a bit. He scored 61 actual points in a game. Like, again, it's hard to project 47 shots and 61 points in a game because that's just not like sustainable or like repeatable, really. But obviously, lead usage getter. The assists have been fantastic lately. I mean, he's fully back to being like actual point guard, but also I can drop 40 on your head at any given time. Massive pace of spot every time the Knicks touch the floor. And the Kings, although the Kings have been better defensively since they went to this Keon Ellis lineup, they rate like 11th in the league since the All-Star break. Direct correlation to Keon Ellis. He did have no problems, 42 actual and 59 fantasy points against them in a meeting earlier in March. So I like Jalen Brunson quite a bit. I would say I would actually probably rank Brunson first amongst the 9K guards, a little ahead of DeJounte, but like Luka, well above everyone, and then Brunson, Murray, Fox for me.
All right. Moving down into the next tier, Steph Curry is here. Maxey, we don't know yet about. Murray, James Harden coming off of a tough day. Fred VanVleet at 78. What are your overall thoughts when it comes to this 8K range? And I guess, if Butler's not going to play, Terry Rozier deserves some consideration at 6,900 as well.
Yeah, I mean, Curry is just insert into tournaments. It's just kind of like we're at that point. Steve Kerr has made it clear he's really not going to extend Steph Curry unless there's overtime, right? Like, unless there's an overtime period, you rarely see him play more than 32, 33 minutes. I know he had that game against Orlando, but Kerr has quite literally talked about it. He's like, he's older. He's not going to be extended. And it does. I mean, when they win games, I guess it doesn't matter, right? They've won 5 in a row. They can bury Houston here. So if you want to play Curry in a tournament, fine. Tyrese Maxey is a little bit interesting if he has the team to himself. Like, we know there's no Toby. We're not sure on JoJo. Like, obviously things are trending in the right direction if he goes through shoot around. But Tobias Harris went through shoot around this morning, and then it's ruled out already. So if Maxey's team by himself, I mean, dude, the minutes, we know what the minutes are going to look like. We know what the shot attempts are going to look like, right? And if the assists come along with it, like they have been a little bit more lately, then I think there's viability to playing Maxey.
Sure.
I'm probably staying away from Jamal Murray, whether he plays, whether he doesn't.
Just the time off lately.
Yeah, the time off, and it's been 2 weeks. I don't know what there's going to be. I would assume there's some type of limitation given his injury history and the need to have him fully healthy before the postseason. James Harden is a little bit interesting. $8,200. We need the not 7, 3, and 7 shot attempt James Harden to show up. And they need that guy to not show up either. But there is obviously a ceiling when shots are falling. He's been an elite passer. He's a good rebounder always. He's a much better shooter than, I mean, dude, he's a 39% shooter from 3 on the year, shooting 24% over his last 5 games. Like, that's just going to perk back up at some point. So if the shots fall, there's a chance for James Harden to have a massive ceiling, especially without Kawhi. And you talked about Terry Rozier, and DT has talked about it. He has been better. This was the Charlotte version of Rozier. Like, it's a pretty good spot when you look at Philly's second half of the All-Star break. Since the All-Star break, 19th in defensive rating, and obviously getting Embiid back in the center of your defense is going to help that. But
it took long enough for this version of Tyler Rozier to show up. I mean, where were these? I thought he was going to come over here, and they were without Tyler Hero. It's like, oh, they'll just have Rozier be the hero guy and take 18 to 20 shots, and he was taking 8 and 10 shot attempts. And I'm like, where's the flamethrower Terry Rozier that we're used to seeing? 18, 17, 19, 15 shot attempts, approaching back that 3 straight games of double-digit 3-point attempts out of Terry Rozier here as well is huge. The minutes, 35 and 35 are great. I'm with you, man. $6,900. If we end up getting a Miami lineup, Sands, Butler, and whoever else may be on the fence here, I'm definitely liking some T. Rose. Do
you remember? I mean, I know it's different because like last time it was an illness, but if you remember, the last time Jimmy missed shoot around, they said missed shoot around but expected to play, right? Yeah. And it was an illness, and this was listed as a personal problem, personal issue. So obviously 2 different scenarios. But if you remember, he was listed and then was downgraded and then didn't play.
Right.
So just saying that, like, that is something to consider. And if we do, get to Rozier and maybe Maxey doesn't play, and then you have Kyle Lowry and Campaign on the other side of this matchup, it's like, oh, wait. Terry Rozier, no Jimmy Butler against that backcourt. That would be a very favorable matchup for him.
Agreed 100%. We're going to way down the list. I mean, obviously McBride, $5,900 playing 46 minutes a night here. Can always just count him in when he's under $6,000. I know you mentioned Ellis with some good defense here, but they're going to be on Brunson, which you would think McBride gets the better of the matchups. Yep. Outside of McBride, you mentioned the Russell Westbrook rostership here tonight. Is this an actual option for you here at 4,800?
So I'm a little uncertain because when you look at what transpired in the Kings game, he played, John, 6 first half minutes. didn't play after the 10:43 mark of the second quarter. Okay, according to popcornmachine.net. He then played the final 17 minutes of the game, and he played with Brandon Boston, Amir Coffey, Daniel Tice, Bones Highland. What does that tell you?
The bench crew there.
So either on one hand, it's get Russ back in the swing of things because they need him for the postseason, right? And they need he needs to be extended. He hasn't really been extended since returning from injury.
Right.
Probably maybe it's a cardio thing, maybe it's game speed acclimated, whatever the case may be. He played the final 17 minutes in a blowout. Norm Powell played 1 minute after the halfway through the third. Paul George didn't play the fourth quarter. James Harden played a minute of the fourth quarter. Like, he was playing with the second and third unit by himself. Like, so I don't like to see 6 first half minutes. I definitely don't like to see 17 straight minutes in a blowout. I think Russ is fine.
Yeah.
I don't like that he's the highest rostered player of the slate, or second highest rostered player of the slate.
So we did just get an update 2 minutes ago, so obviously we'll work on getting that posted to the site. Cam Whitmore still your top overall rostered player here. Westbrook still among the top, but he's now the 7th highest rostered player on the slate.
Like, he's a undoubtedly still at this stage of his career, good fantasy point per minute guy. No question. There's no Kawhi Leonard. Like, he took 14 shots in 24 minutes. Like, does that have to do with the unit that he's playing with? Probably. But like, that's also that's in his bag when there's no Kawhi Leonard. I'm just a little skittish that he's in a more competitive setting. He is
the highest rostered point guard on the slate tonight.
That doesn't necessarily surprise me. I saw the update on Luka's. He's
Luka 20% still. So right where he kind of was before. A little bump, but not a ton.
What else? What else are we looking at point guard for owner? What are you looking at for ownership here?
I mean, nothing crazy. Dante Exum's getting 16%.
Lack of value. That's like wanting to get Luka. No Josh Green. No Derek Lively. Dante Exum's been okay, but we've said this before. Like, he's playing minutes 22, 23, 18, 21, but like, it's also such.
Eamon Thompson 17%.
I don't get that with Whitmore back. We've seen the minutes kind of.
Yeah, 25, 20, the last two. Obviously able to fill the stat sheet. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with the point guard position. Fred VanVleet is your highest, I guess, like mid-tier play. Him and Luka around the same ownership here for tonight. Shooting guard position.
I think we just have to mention it. Both Philly guards would be in play without Tyrese Maxey as well.
Agreed. Payne and Lowry would be there for sure. Jalen Green 88, Kyrie Irving getting some love 87, Paul George at 84 here, James.
I mean, it's hard to not look at Jalen Green's numbers without Şengün on the floor and like be like, don't need to play him. Like, that's looking at things incorrectly, right?
Yeah.
Like, had one bad game, bounce right back the next day. 26 actual and 22 shot attempts. Like, the shot attempts, the minutes. This is a do or die game for Houston. Like, if they don't win this game, it's wraps, right? Like, they're not making the playoffs. This is the team directly in front of them. This is a full game swing. Mm-hmm. You just can't make that up when you're facing the team in front of you if you lose. So expect monster minutes out of Jalen Green again. Monster, all the shot attempts. He's obviously been really good peripherally as well. A lot of 3-point attempts out of him.
Yeah.
So can definitely get there. Kyrie's fine if you want to go there. Obviously, limited ceiling with what Luka does peripherally and scoring. But there's always a case for Kyrie to be the guy on a given night. Sure. Paul George is interesting. One bad game against Sacramento in a blowout, right? Game before that, 61 fantasy points. He is very high usage, very high fantasy point per minute guy without Kawhi Leonard. So it is front leg of a back-to-back for the Clippers, for what that's worth. I don't think that matters all too much. Last back-to-back we saw out of Paul George, 34 and 33 minutes on front and back end of a back-to-back.
Yeah.
Last one before that, 35 and 41 minutes. So like that time where he was limited is all gone. So just felt like mentioning it. Good eligibility, 8,400. Perfectly fine getting to Paul George.
Yeah, 100% with you. And he's like the 8th highest rostered shooting guard tonight. No one's really spending up. They're more so going to the mid tier because a lot of these guys we've talked about have dual positional eligibility here, right? So we have DiVincenzo, we have Oubre, we have McBride, Norm Powell's getting a lot of love here tonight. Do you have a favorite of this mid tier group?
I mean, I'm definitely interested in DDV. We're gonna get big minutes out of him. Good spot. I actually think, John, we see Keegan Murray guard Jalen Brunson. And then Ellis on like a DiVincenzo or McBride. They usually use Keegan Murray on the opposing best player.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume it'd be Murray. And then like Ellis guards DiVincenzo, which is kind of a tough spot. He shot 5 of 16 in this game the last time they faced off. Again, different situation because the Knicks could be really shorthanded here. But with the 3-point volume, it's hard not. The 3-point volume in the minutes for me is just it's really hard not to look at DiVincenzo.
Sure,
dude, multiple steals and like 7 straight. 224 against Boston was the last time he didn't have a steal in a game. So like he's just on the board in that category every night as well. So DiVincenzo would probably be my guy in this tier. And then when you start like looking at
it's
the
such
value,
a pace up spot for the Knicks tonight that I just like, kind of like him a lot.
And like if there's no Josh Hart, like you can legitimately just pencil in DiVincenzo and McBride for 44 plus minutes. Probably Achua in for 44 plus. Because like there's also the Mitchell Robinson piece that might not play. So like, dude, if Robinson and Hart don't play, forget it. We're getting 40 from straight 48 from McBride. We're getting like 44 from DiVincenzo, and then probably 40 from Precious, and go from there.
Yeah, no arguments. Again, we talked Norman 5K. Cam Whitmore is the highest rostered player overall tonight. Are you buying into it?
It's interesting because like we like him quite a bit. Like he is a bucket getter. Like he slid in the draft because there was some like off the court feeling and like injury related issues that made him slide. Houston got a steal. I mean, they had 2 first-round picks that both should have been drafted in the lottery. He's a high volume shooter.
Jonathan Kuminga listed out for tonight.
Okay, so they'll go back to the same exact starting lineup that we've seen, which was already going to be the case, but confirming Trace Jackson Davis in the starting lineup. I'm definitely interested in Whitmore. How about this? This is almost the exact same play. Cam Whitmore, Tim Hardaway. Is it not? It's almost the exact play.
Sure.
I think Hardaway, if I'm not mistaken, is also getting ownership as well. Probably a little bit less. I think
10% less than Whitmore, but still Hardaway the second highest rostered shooting guard on the night.
Like in a scenario where I'm looking to get leverage on the field, I would play Hardaway over Whitmore. Like if I'm looking for a value shooting guard and I want leverage, I would just play the lower end of the two because I think they're essentially the same play.
Yeah,
right.
No
they're streaky shooters that get on the floor and do that, and if shots fall, then there's a good minute ceiling and then there's a good fantasy point ceiling at their price. They have the same eligibility, so I like if I'm looking for leverage, I'd probably just play the lower end of the two.
Yeah. And you know what? Tim Hardaway, Luka Doncic, not the only one looking to get some revenge on Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
PHJ there. Though I think they give him a lot of money. So, anybody else a shooting guard? Or we go to small forward.
I mean, the Kuminga news does solidify the Moses Moody minutes. Sure. We'll see Moses Moody play 20 plus minutes, shooting guard, small forward, $3,800. If there's no Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, 27, 28, 26 minutes in each of the last 3 games, like those 2 guys would be penciled in for like just solid minutes. Brown news we'll obviously have to wait on.
Yeah.
The Moody news that we don't need to wait on. Did they also get us the Gary Payton? Because I know Gary Payton was on the injury report too. They did not. They got us. We got all the Washington news. All the Washington news we didn't need.
Yeah, for tomorrow. Nobody's playing for Washington tomorrow. So.
Yeah. All right.
Shooting guard, small forward rather. Paul George has a dual positional eligibility. We don't know Butler or Hart status. Bogdan dual positional eligibility at 7K. Anybody new at this position that we didn't talk about at shooting guard that you find yourself looking to play at small forward tonight?
I mean, we didn't mention. You might have. I didn't hear you mention Kelly Oubre's name, but no Toby.
I got to skim by him in that tier, but I mean, certainly, if guys are out, right, like there's monster opportunity for him here.
Right. We know. So we know the Tobias Harris news. He's out.
Yeah.
Right. So like he's out. I would say if one of Maxey or Embiid sit, I would have a lot of interest in Oubre because he's essentially your number 2 option in that.
Right.
In that case,
if those guys are in, you almost can't play anybody else, right?
You just play those guys, and
we've learned that the hard way this year.
Maybe there's like a case for Nicholas Batum, who's been pretty good off their bench, is cheap, and is going to play like 30 plus minutes. That would be like the only other guy. We know he's like pretty good peripherally, but I don't think you could get to like a $6,500 Kelly Oubre in that instance. I would say he would need to be, if there's nobody, is Kelly Oubre might be a priority for us tonight. Sure. I know it's a really tough spot against Miami, but like he is going to be their number 1 option.
Yeah. No arguments here. Working our way down the list, we talked to MPJ. Obviously, if there's no Murray's coming off of a pretty good game here. We like Andrew Wiggins last night as well. No Kuminga locks in these minutes and roll for him.
Yes. I think the price is getting up there on Wiggins. That's the only thing, but like not to a point that I'm scared to use him. I think there's a case to either Clay or Wiggins. Wiggins has just been better overall. He's just been better this year, better peripherally as well. So I lean Wiggins of the two, but they're both going to start. Dude, 30 plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. And we know Kuminga's been out for most of them, if not all of them. So, yeah, this is the version of Andrew Wiggins that they've been waiting for. Dude, this is the version that, let's face it, that was an all-star, right? Probably shouldn't have been an all-star a couple years ago, but, like, was good. So, no Kuminga is a big deal. Definitely can get to some Andrew Wiggins for sure.
Yeah. And any other value options for you? 5K and below?
You mentioned Norm. Hawkes kind of removed from the rotation last game. I do think that has to do with how well Haywood Highsmith has played. 28 plus minutes in 4 straight games. In 25 and 5 straight. Dude, 28 plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 for Haywood Highsmith. Again, you said it yesterday on the stream. Like, as soon as we click Haywood Highsmith's name, he's gonna have 7 fantasy points, and that like is a thing with him. But I mean, if we did get Jimmy ruled out, I wouldn't be surprised if Highsmith even started for Jimmy. Just how well he's played, and he's clearly he's usurped Jaime Jaquez Jr., who's is struggling right now. So Highsmith, if we get Josh Hart out of the lineup, we talked about Bogey last night, shooting guard or small forward, power forward, $3,600, coming off one of his best games as a Knick lately.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that lineup. It's a 7:30 start, so Slate locks tonight at 7:30, so we'll have that information beforehand. I mean, if he ends up starting tonight, you play him over Kit Whitmore, you play him over Hardaway.
He'd be the highest roster player of the slate.
Yeah, you're playing him over all of the value guys that we've already talked about here. But let me ask you, if Josh Hart's out and say he doesn't start, it's Precious Achiuwa, how does he rank for you with the Whitmores and Hardaways? Like, does he, if you think they're going to be in the realm of the same minute rotation, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to envision him getting to 30 minutes. I would say we've talked about it a couple times. When it's Brunson out of the lineup, I feel like Bogdanovich is needed more because it's just offensive firepower that they need, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Brunson's there, Tibbs is just nah, we're good. We got Brunson and we got DiVincenzo and now Miles McBride making all these shots. Like, I don't need more offense. Like, I need Precious being a psychopath defensively, or like on the glass and on defense, right? Like, because that's what Precious provides. He just provides chaos. Like, Precious would rank really highly for me if he's starting at 4,300, which I would assume, by the way. I think Precious is the guy we'd assume starts instead of Bogdanovic. There's nothing that Bogdanovic has done that suggests he would start, right? Like, just even when he's been acquired, it's been all Precious.
Didn't he start one game and go off earlier this year after he got traded? He had these two. Because he's playing 30 minutes for Ron. I thought he had like a big game with them. These were all Detroit, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe it was just like 30 fantasy points. I thought he had like a pretty big deal. But it doesn't. Apparently, I'm
Burks. I know for a fact Burks started.
Yeah, okay. Maybe
Burks has started a couple games, but like during that when Brunson missed time. But I can't definitively say bogey. I don't think he has. To your question though, like where he would rank amongst the others if like Hart and Mitchell Robertson ruled out. I mean, he'd rank up there. He's cheaper.
Sure.
He doesn't have as good eligibility as Whitmore and Tim Hardaway do.
Sure.
But he'd be up there for sure.
All right, power forward. Jalen Johnson is getting a ton of rostership love. He's the second highest projected roster on played on the slate. Played 37 minutes, had 76 fantasy points last night on a triple-double. I know in your underdog fantasy article, you have a Jalen Johnson prop that you like tonight.
I do. 29.5 PRA, points, rebounds, assists. We're going over that. I mean, it's one of those situations where you and I talked about it yesterday, and shame on us for not pulling the trigger in DFS.
Sure. We
said if he's starting, then he's too cheap at $7,000.
He was.
He sure was.
He's $100 cheaper now.
He is $100 cheaper, and like there was literally no limit. Full minutes, 37 minutes, absolutely dominant. And I talked about it in the article. It's not just the scoring, which we know because he can shoot. He can space the floor. He's made multiple threes in a bunch of games in a row. He gets to the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
He's great. He's a great passer. 10 potential assists over his last 5 games. And as you can see, only one of those games, he had fewer than 4 assists, and he was limited off the bench in that Chicago game. And then he's a great rebounder. 14 rebounds last game, like 12 potentials over his last 5, which obviously doesn't translate to 14, but still 12 potentials is still really solid. He's just too cheap for the matchup. It's a really high-paced matchup. It's tied for the highest implied point total on the board. The only thing we have to worry about is if Luka and Kyrie catch fire, there's probably nothing Atlanta can do about it, right? That's usually
12.5 point spread. They are on the road on a back-to-back. Like they have a lot of things working against them in this game here, but if they hang, it's probably because Jalen Johnson just went out and did what he did last night.
Right. And him and DeJounte. I mean, dude, for like as mediocre of a team as Atlanta is, like they have flamethrowers. Like they have like good pieces. Like Clint
Bogdan can score all over the floor. Obviously,
DeAndre Hunter,
Johnson can.
DeAndre Hunter, yep. Capella, when you get 30 minutes out of him, has been super effective. So like I think there's a lot to suggest this game is going to stay competitive, and you just see it from Jalen Johnson night in, night out that he is able to play full capacity minutes. He is putting up big numbers. So 6,900 for Jalen is one of my favorite.
I'm just gonna hit the button now. We're gonna build a lineup at the end of the show like we do every day, and I'll just start it off just hitting the Jalen Johnson button there. We mentioned Michael Porter at small forward. You have Draymond here. Jabari, Keegan Murray at 61. Like how you finishing out the rest of the 6K range? Ownership
updated over on fantasyalarm.com for the record. So you guys go check that out right now. John will drop the link in the description for that. Finishing up power forward. You mentioned Michael Porter. Draymond's been playing pretty well without Jonathan Kuminga. 38, 59 fantasy points in back-to-back games for Draymond. I don't think 6 and 4 steals are repeatable, but he has been super good offensively. He has been really good peripherally. So Draymond at 64, they're going to need him for big minutes. Flip side of that matchup, Jabari Smith, what guy shows up on a night-to-night basis, it's really hard to predict. But we saw it against Dallas. Like, that is like when Jabari's at his best, he is like insanely high ceiling guy. But when he's at his low, he's insanely low floor guy and gets taken off the floor by Udoka, right? So Jabari in tournaments, I mentioned this to you last night. No Malik Monk, no Kevin Huerter. Their reluctance to extend Harrison Barnes just presents a massive opportunity for Keegan Murray. Like, he is needed, and you have seen it like over the last 2 games without both those players. 18 shot attempts, dude.
Hitting threes at a little better clip than he had during the middle of the season.
Yep. And that is like Keegan Murray excels when he is making shots. Now, we've talked about this before. He was at home for 5 straight games. We have talked about how good he has been at home versus how bad he's been on the road. And sometimes that doesn't matter. Like,
pretty glaring. 31% from 3, 40% from 3 at home.
Dude, I mean, that's like pretty significant, right? Like, sometimes that stuff doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't. But like the threes being that like wide in discrepancy in terms of
it's a large sample size now, right? It's not the beginning of the season. He's got a whole year, 10% difference from 3 at home versus the road.
Yeah, 35 games at both home and road. 5 points per game less on the road.
Jimmy Butler will play.
Okay. Finishes his latest Fall Out Boy video. Got it. Good for you, Jimmy. Way to go. Way to be present for your team. So like Keegan Murray 61 is a little bit interesting. We mentioned the Wiggins thing. We've talked about DeAndre Hunter being a flamethrower coming off 40 fantasy points in his last game. He's now done that in 2 of his last 4. PJ Washington's a little bit interesting, John. No Derek Lively last game, 36 minutes. No Josh Green as well. Like, they're kind of, this is why we're seeing guys like Washington and Tim Hardaway get ownership, because they are kind of like thin on the wings. But 36 minutes, 19 shot attempts for PJ Washington. Like, we've seen him, and you've pegged like the right PJ Washington nights on a couple occasions this year.
I had like his only double before.
What's your crystal ball? What does your PJ Washington crystal ball say about tonight? Because 5,300, multi-position eligible, good matchup against Atlanta. Like, wait, John, he went 12 of 18 against Atlanta already. Was that the game? Was that the
no? He had a double the game that I was all in on PJ Washington for. Yeah, I mean, it could be. The problem is it's just the volume that, Luke is going to take, right? So
and Kyrie
against Golden State, but, before that, it's been 8, 10, 11, so.
Yeah. I agree.
Tournament play. Fit stacks. He's cheap enough to help you get him in there. That's all fine. You mentioned the Precious Achiuwa. If he starts, I think we'll go there at $4,300.
For sure.
Anybody else for you down here?
I assume Batum starts tonight. Okay. He's been playing big minutes off the bench regardless, 28, 31, 28, 30 minutes. Pretty solid peripherally. 4,100, it's a good price. I would say definitely interested in Batum if like a bunch of guys are out. Talked about Highsmith. The Trey Lyles thing is very interesting to me because they are looking for somebody to step up with Monk and with Monk and Huerter out. And also, I said it, but I meant it. Like, they are reluctant to extend Harrison Barnes. They just are. Like, he has been one of the first people benched all year long. Trey Lyles, John, played a ton of first half minutes, dude. He closed the first 5 minutes of the first half. He also played the first 9 minutes of the fourth quarter with Fox, Sabonis, Keegan Murray, and then got taken off the floor basically when the rest of the starters did. I wouldn't be surprised if they started leaning into more of this like Trey Lyles, Sabonis front court. Given, I think he's just maybe he's just a better player at this point than Harrison Barnes, or he just fits the bill better for them. But he played a lot of first half minutes. And if that's going to be the case, I mean, he played 15 first half minutes. Like, if Trey Lyles is going to pace for 30 minutes at 3,600, like, dude, we were playing him at 20 minutes a game in the Denver days. Like, if you guys remember.
I was going to say, those of you who've paid attention, we've been in on Trey Lyles for a while. James and I have been doing, I know there's a lot of new viewers in here. We appreciate you all. tuning in. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, free way to support the channel here. James and I have been covering the NBA DFS for Fantasy Slam for 10 years now. I know we don't look that old, but we've been with Fantasy Slam now for a decade. We basically started the NBA DFS coverage here. It's carried it all the way through. So we remember when Trey Lyles was entering the league and getting minutes off the bench for Denver. And we're like, dude, this guy, 20 minutes, lock and load, 20 fantasy points. Like, let's get him in. And that really hasn't ever tapered off. Like, this is kind of where he's been as a player for his career. Coach Chris asking Oubre or MPJ tonight. Where are you at? Obviously, I think this is dependent on who plays for Philadelphia, right?
Yes. It also matters if Jamal Murray plays, because the Clippers are bottom 3 defense in the NBA since the All-Star break. That has been they have sucked. Straight up been terrible defensively. Sure. Like effort, everything. Like, it's being talked about. Like, they don't have an identity. They've been bad defensively. I would almost lean MPJ if we knew Jamal Murray was out. But obviously, if Oubre's team by himself, it's hard to go.
Yeah, and you'll know that news ahead of.
You won't know. I know. Like, if it's Oubre by himself, you just play Oubre.
Sure. But if Embiid and Maxey are in, I can't play Oubre there.
Yeah, I think there's like definitely a scenario where you're just not, and by a scenario I mean all the scenarios where you're just not playing Kelly Oubre.
Agreed. All right, let's close this out at the center position. If Joker and Embiid are both active tonight, who's your center?
Joker. Okay. Unless we can get confirmation from Nick Nurse that there's no limit, which again, you said it. I think there's like two scenarios.
Like 29 minutes odd at the jump on his return.
You said it last night on the show. You said they might just hold him here at around 30 minutes for a little bit, and then last few games before the regular season ends, they ramp him.
Yeah.
Or they just ramp him right away, right? I would say we see Nick Nurse usually do press conferences before the game, and he's pretty.
Yeah, he's not Doc Rivers, right? Where he doesn't know that Joel Embiid isn't going to play or not. Like,
well, they're reporting before that point sucks, and then when Nick Nurse steps on the podium, usually you understand. Usually you get the full. You're right. Like, Doc's just like, yeah, I don't know, haven't talked to him all.
Joel said he's going to play. Oh, cool. I haven't talked to him yet. I don't know.
I haven't seen him in 3 days. That's crazy. It's like, Doc, you were at practice yesterday, right? Yeah. Unless there's because if we get word, and I know it's a really tough matchup, Bam Adebayo, good defender, Miami, second-ranked defensive team in the NBA. He was the best player in the NBA, bar none, before the injury.
Yeah.
And if you were to get a full capacity Embiid I don't care if it's his first game back, second game back, at 11K, you have to at least consider it.
He missed 2 months. Came back, played 29 minutes, hit 12 of 12 from the line, had 24, 6, 7, and 3 in 29 minutes. When he was playing 37 minutes, we have 105 fantasy points on the board here. That's a game that happened this season. Happened 3 games before he got hurt. Maybe this is not uncommon territory for him here. Look at all these 70s. You scroll through his game. He had an 80 the third game of the year.
Do you remember all the 3-quarter Joel Embiid
60
we got too?
Right. A lot of these 30-minute games, 29-minute games, he's going for 70 fantasy points because he was shutting the door, right? He was the one that was putting these teams away early, and he was taking a rest. So, if they come out and they're like, oh, he's playing 35 tonight. Yeah, I don't know. It's, I get the Bam matchup, but Embiid was playing at a different level.
Agreed.
And, it's nothing against the Joker here. It's just you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yes. The crappy part about you playing Nikola Jokic tonight is not that you have Nikola Jokic in your lineup, but it just is very unlikely we get the Jamal Murray news, right? Mm-hmm. You could potentially have a 1% Nikola Jokic tonight, or whatever the percentage is. I think, what was the update on latest update? Ownership for Nikola Jokic is 12%. You can have an extremely low roster Nikola Jokic going 2 hours later against one of the worst defensive units in basketball right now. and that could win you a tournament.
Just locking in 70 fantasy points basically on that spot.
But also, we don't definitively know if Jamal Murray is going to play. So unless we got the Jamal Murray news ahead of time, there's definitely pivots. Like you could play like Trey Lyles at center or a different center at your center spot, right? Jalen Johnson, whatever. Or Jalen Johnson doesn't have the eligibility anymore. Whatever the case may be. And then use Jokic in your util and have like a 2-for-2 swap where you have like you go from Jokic Norm to like Paul George, James Harden.
Sure.
Right? Or something.
Your highest rostered center tonight's Daniel Gafford. So
it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. With no Lively. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of uncertainty with center at the top because if Embiid's playing full minutes, he's too cheap. Even though that number says 11K, he was the best player in the NBA for, until he got hurt. And then the Jokic thing is, well, you might get 1.9 fantasy points per minute all by himself without Jamal Murray. So, like, great spend ups. And then Sabonis, like, sorry, you're just like third fiddle here. We know you can put up a triple double at any time. So if you want to play Sabonis, like by all means, he's probably too cheap at 10-2.
Yep. No, I agree with you 100% there. So where else are we going to center? You mentioned Jackson Davis, could get in the lineup, play some minutes here with no Kuminga, 6K for him. Bam, Sabonis, you talked about Capella at 65, getting over 30 minutes and doubling. Zubac coming off of a big night. Like, what are your thoughts in the mid tier?
Yeah, I mean, Bam, tournaments. I think he's fine. If Embiid's there, less fine.
Sure.
If it's a combination of Mo Bamba and Paul Reed, or just Paul Reed, then maybe I'd revisit the Bam Adebayo discussion. If Capella's gonna get 30 minutes or come anywhere close to it, I think he's definitely in play again. We talked Draymond, Jabari. Jackson Davis minutes are everywhere. I mean, 21, 28, 31. Like the two games prior were great. 21, not so great. But he has a pretty high ceiling. We saw 39, 34 fantasy points. One of those games, Draymond got thrown out. So the other game, he almost got thrown out.
Right.
So that's something. Gafford, I mean, like, I'm not against chalk Daniel Gafford. He's like, he has a crazy ceiling because he goes from 0 to 100 when he blocks shots. Like, dude, why is it we're not just like blocking shots? We're either blocking all the shots or no shots on a night-to-night basis for Daniel Gafford. So, the rebounds will be there, the dunks will be there. He's a really good passer, which we've unlocked with Dallas with this team. He is a very, very good post passer. And so, yeah, 5,700 is fine. Zubats has a ceiling. Really tough matchup. Not tough matchup, but like he's actually
tough matchup going against Jokic. It's tough matchup.
Jokic is an improved defender, for sure.
Well, I mean, also you got to think on the defensive end, he's going to have his hands full.
Yeah, I know. He's going to have to work hard. Hartenstein would be a little bit interesting if there's no Mitchell Robinson. We don't know what the Mitchell Robinson news is going to be. And we talked about this on the pre-show last night, John. We just had the comment come in from Justin. Paul Reed is interesting based on everything we know about Paul Reed's like fantasy production. If they don't have any active centers, like, yes, Paul Reed might be in foul trouble before the tip, right? Might pencil him in with 2 fouls. Like, we've seen that Paul Reed, the version of Paul Reed as well. He's well over a fantasy point per minute without Embiid on the floor, well over a fantasy point per minute without Embiid, Harris, and Tyrese Maxey. Like,
yeah,
I don't know how competitive that version of Philly is going to be. We might even like, they don't even have DJ Wilson anymore. Is KJ Martin their backup center in this scenario, which I guess isn't the worst because Kevin Love is the backup center on the other side. So like,
sure.
I definitely have interest in Paul Reed if we don't have Embiid or Mo Bamba.
All right. And any of the value tier centers we haven't talked about yet?
No. I would play Lyles also here at center.
Sure. All right, let's build a lineup here, James. We got Jalen Johnson already in. Are we going Luka here?
Yeah, let's just try it with Luka.
Okay. Trying with Luka, that gives us $5,100 to play. If we're looking at our projected rostership here this evening for some value plays under 5K, Cam Whitmore is $4,100. You buying the Cam Whitmore hype?
I want to play Norm.
Okay.
Play him in the util.
Norm in the util.
We have the late exposure. I want to play Trey Lyles. That would be another value that I'm
Trey Lyles in a power forward then, or forward then.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
5,500. What's your next move?
Whitmore, or it's probably the decision between Whitmore and Hardaway would probably be the decision.
I'll say that we will at least get the Knicks news ahead of time.
Right. That will present plenty of value.
Because then we play either Achua or Bogdan in that situation.
Bojan, but yes.
Bojan, sorry. We play Achua or Bojan in that
we have to be specific on this slate because both Bogdanovich.
Obama officially ruled out, so we are getting some news here on the
Philly front.
Sixers. So we'll see if that comes through. I'm going to move Lyles to center for now, so leaves the forward open for Achua or Bojan, depending on who moves in there.
Yeah, I don't see anything. I just see Philly beat writers reporting specifically on Mo Bamba and nothing past that.
If you had to pick a DiVincenzo or McBride,
I would pick DiVincenzo, but like for financial purposes, probably. I mean,
Hart and Robinson are game time decisions.
Hart and Robinson are game time decisions. Mm-hmm. Game time is 7:30, so we'll know. We will know, fortunately.
All right, plugged in McBride at 6K.
Okay.
6K for a guard or forward, or we would move Norm to one of those two positions and open up a util for us.
Yeah. I mean, if we wanted to,
it all depends on the stars and scrubs, right? That you want to kind of get to here.
Yeah, like if we wanted to play THJ as well.
I was gonna say you play THJ, gives you an 8K util.
Yeah,
which would Buckets is playing tonight. It's gonna be active. It's a must win for them.
I'd rather play like Van
Vliet. Okay,
probably.
All right. Let's move Norm. Van Vliet's getting some ownership love tonight. Let's move Norm to forward.
Well, you could actually keep Norm, and you could
move Hardaway down. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Just keep Norm in the late window just in case.
Okay. Powell to the util. Hardaway to the small forward. The forward position here. And then Van Vliet to the guard. $200 left over. Again, Achua is what, $4,300, I think it was. So we'll be able to save some money there somewhere if we decide to go in that direction. But this is paying it up for Luka Doncic here tonight. Everybody, Doncic, McBride, Whitmore, Jalen Johnson, Lyles, Van Vliet, Hardaway, and Norm Powell. Our guy Dylan Clemens has the playbook out for all of you. DT saying Podzinski. Yeah, we can go Pod, possibly. You know. IC3 Justin saying he likes PJ at center, if not using it.
Shocker. IC3 and PJ Washington.
I stacked Shocker last night. Only 8 players. It was a disaster.
Yeah. Well, they started a center that didn't make a shot in the first half and wasn't on the main slate. So that's when you knew.
Justin, things were definitely not great in that game. What was that? That wasn't the Charlotte game also, where they had like 70 points in like the fourth quarter.
Yeah, 91-88 or 90. Yeah, Brent, they missed a 3 to tie it. Yeah.
Embiid and Maxey are both game time decisions here. So
such good news that we just got.
Such good news. 7:30 roster lock, everybody. Have an extra half an hour here tonight. Go check out the playbook. Get in the Discord. If you're not already a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, become a member. Join our All-Pro subscription package here. Right now, the annual subscription is 40% off the month-to-month price. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win or scan the QR code there on the screen. Again, the annual sub, get access to all of our DFS content, MLB, NBA, NHL, NASCAR, PGA, MMA, you name it. We cover it. Includes the NFL season as well, the draft guide, and DFS and seasonal coverage with the annual subscription package. So again, fantasyalarm.com/win. Scan the QR code there on the screen to go sign up today. Nick Nurse, Joel Embiid on track to play.
And Maxey as well, both.
And Maxey as well as we end the show. So there you go, everybody. Good luck with your lineups this evening. We'll catch you later.